I know all about it.
Well, most my equipment can go out.
Yeah, I'll have her call to order and then I'll do it really quick and we can start. Yep.
And I have a lot of my upper.
Oh, you're.
No, I wasn't very good the other night.
I had a
feel like I was
bariatric.
weak in this regard.
You gotta go like aggressive.
It's
I
called
know
a
it's
mini
weird to watch her
gastric
face,
bypass.
so it's a lot easier. Okay, go ahead.
And ruined why they don't hear.
All right, let's go
They
ahead
take
and
part
call
of the
this
stomach
meeting to
out.
order. It is, Stevensville Committee of the Whole meeting, for Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. So good evening, everybody. Let's go ahead and do roll call, please, Jim.
Councilmember Ross,
Here.
Councilmember Wondler, Councilmember Smith,
Here.
and Councilmember Bailey.
Here. All right, item number 2, discussion on the following items. Item A is introduction, Town of Stevensville budget process, and I believe we have our finance team here tonight to walk us through this.
Okay, good evening. You're not consulting-based intelligence, we go through this thing, but try to get everyone on the same sheet of music. Some of you guys have heard this, seen it, gone through it, but this is the first time we kind of did this type of, I would call it a class, but presentation, there you go. And so I'm not gonna try to solve anybody's problem, we'll just quickly go through this, and then, have questions, and if you have questions along the way, please just bring it up, we can discuss about anything. If I don't know the answer, I'll give you the answer, because gosh knows what your questions could be. Okay, so this is a slideshow I took out of the Montana League of Towns. They do one, and then the local government services do one, and I kind of put it all together just for this setting. Okay, but let's get started. Here's what they say all the roles are. Okay, obviously the town council, you have a sole authority to, by the majority vote, to adopt the budget or amend the budget. The mayor is responsible for preparing the budget and executing the budget. The finance officer and that team, our team is, we collect the information, provide the financial data, and work with the mayor and the council, and then work with putting it all together and then presenting it to you to then pass the budget. Once again, we are working for you guys because it's your budget. You guys are the final authority of the budget. We give you the best recommendation we can. And that's just not us. It comes from what I'll talk about later. And then, of course, the department heads who really do the nitty gritty of what they really need. They, they prepare their portion of the budget, justify why they need it, look for, cheapest cost, or the best cost, the best fit for the town, for for personnel, capital improvements, and operational maintenance functions. So they really do a big chunk of it, and we present that to you with our input. Okay, it's legally required for expenditures to be balanced. Okay, we had an issue last year what a balanced budget is. We'll talk about that here later on. Okay, it must conform to the BAR's chart of accounts. So all those little numbers you see have to match the BAR's chart of accounts from the state of Montana. They give us the book. We have to use those same numbers for the fund, the account, and the object. And some of it, there's a lot of, I call it there's an art to it and there's a science. The science you can't change. There's a little bit of art to it when it's ambiguous. You have to kind of figure it out because you can't have an object code for everything you buy. So it's kind of, where does it fit? Okay. Once again, it must be approved by council by October 1st. Okay. And the public had, include the appropriation of any public funds have to be there and set the annual property tax and levy, which usually comes before we actually finish the budget. So we'll talk about that process a little bit. Okay. It's a requirement, This includes enterprise funds. Enterprise funds are water and sewer and the airport. The airport's kind of a quasi enterprise fund. It stands on its own. It does receive some tax money, but that's the way we do it in the audit for the accounting purposes. You see that there. Government fund accounting is required, so we can't just do regular accounting. We have to use government accounting the way we do it. And so we don't get it set the way we do that. Each stream of revenue and associated expenses can be accounted for and tracked within a specific government fund. it has to be tracked. And you all know that, it's something we do, okay? What is this is a budget? Montana, the governments typically have at least 5 to 6 government funds. We have quite a few, and I'll show you that here in the end. But it's broken down into those funds that we have broken down by governmental funds, enterprise funds, and other funds. We have one other fund, which is a pass-through, and that's for the fireman's disability fund. And it's just a pass-through. All our other funds fall within the first government funds and enterprise funds. Montana budget law, and it's basically right there. That's where it comes out of. That's where we get out of the MCA code. So if you have any questions, you can go look at the Montana code and annotate it. I'm just going to read these ones, just kind of some of the main ones out of the Montana code annotated. The key one here, this one's changed, that first one. So the person or persons responsible for going over the budget can be held accountable for that. And so if someone spent too much money, they can be held accountable. And it's each year, each 2 years in legislative, they're trying to get it down to the user. A couple of years ago, they got it down to the officials. Oh, sorry. They got it down to the officials. And they wanted to, hold finance officer personally responsible. Well, they didn't make it that far enough in the process, but they keep trying to get further down the line to make the individuals responsible. But really, you guys and the mayor are the ones that are on the line for going over the budget. Now, do you do anything with the budget? It goes downhill, and Gina's really the one that, holds the gate on, going over the budget. For the most part, when she puts everything in there.
If they present something to us to pay a bill and it goes over, can we be responsible if we approve it, not vote?
No, so that's funny because it's more of a, if you knew it was gonna go over, yeah. But if you didn't, and we didn't say it was going over, you probably don't be found responsible because you didn't know. And the thing is with going over the budget, it only accounts for the fund, not the account and not the object code. So we have some negatives in, like say you go to the police department, you'll see a line that has a negative on the object code. That's not going over the budget. The budget only counts for the fund. So the general fund, if we go over the amount that you guys say we can spend for the general fund, that would be over budget and we need a budget amendment. So we really don't know when we're gonna go over the budget until almost the end of the year. And so you look at the budget, we say 61%, 41%, really, that's the ones you're looking at. That's when you know we're gonna get close to going over budget. Now, if we go to buy a big ticket item, like when we bought the backhoe, we did a budget amendment beforehand. I talked to the council beforehand, because that was $60,000. We didn't go over budget that year, but we could have easily gone over budget that year in the water and sewer funds and general fund, because that's a big expense. And so some stuff like that comes up. Big ticket items that really weren't in the budget, it would be better off to have a budget amendment for it. I'll give you an example. The RAP Foundation gave us money for the new fire engine to do all the work on it. The fire department is normally right at their budget level. That would be a good one to do a budget amendment on early. Even though if we didn't, that's still the general fund. If the general fund doesn't go over money, we don't need to do it. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's kind of so, so really, you guys worry about the funds. The mayor worries about the account, So he gives the police department this much, you guys give the police department this much money on the account. The fire department has this much and so and so. If the police start going over their budget, the mayor can say, oh, okay, you're good, you can get this because we're not, we can maneuver a little bit of money in the accounts. Doesn't affect the fund at all. But if once it goes over the fund, by law, we have to have a budget approved. So you guys, spend that money.
Thank you.
Okay,
Is that something that you're monitoring, or is that something we need to
Oh,
monitor?
no, I think we look at it every day. Yeah, it's an every day, and every time we do those, finance, reports, and we're already looking at that, you know? And, it's so, and this is about the time we really start getting worried about it. And right now, it's looking pretty darn good this year, so nothing's really popping up, but, we will, you know, when it starts popping up, you'll see, I know we gotta start worrying about this. And so when you look at those numbers, especially in the fund amount, when you start hitting 80, 90%, we're getting close. Okay, 90 is close, because what happens is, like last year, we got all the way done. We're good at these funds. The accountants come in, they have to do, the people who are AFR, they love to adjust, you know, do all the big adjustments about salary and this year and that year and all that stuff. They give us a bunch of JVs to do, and all of a sudden you're over $1,800 because they just do their figuring and then you account for our liabilities on our retirement, blah, blah, blah. And I'm kind of getting into details, but when they do their stuff, sometimes you can be over budget. And so you'll see us try to do a budget amendment, you know, after the fact. They usually don't ding us on those because they're usually small amounts, they're not big amounts, but you could go over budget just by them coming and doing the audit adjustments. And so, at least for the AFR. And then they'll do a couple audit adjustments during the audit, which I think I could have seen, I don't know, saw some of them. And so, but they're usually kind of small, but you can see how you can go over budget just by them doing some stuff at the end of the year.
How late in the year, in the fiscal year, can you make a budget adjustment? Is there,
Before your audit.
just as long as it's before the audit? Okay.
So the way it works, so, you know, we'll get, in the perfect world, you pass the budget before the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1st. And then you pass the salaries first. It's best to pass the salaries first because then we don't have to retro pay everybody back, which is a nightmare nowadays. So you pass the budget, you go through the year, you close the year, you have 3 months for the town to, you know, continue that year because bills come in late. I mean, you can get bills late, so they will give you 3 months. Then you have 3 months to finish your AFR, and then it's got to be turned in by December, and then the audit has to be turned in by June of the following year. So you have a little time, because, you know, like you say, we're good at the end of the year, you get that bill, and we've had bills come in like 3, 4, 5 a year later for that year. It's kind of, you know, like Image Trend, they didn't bill us last year. They didn't bill Stevensville rural, and this year we got the bill for it. It's already closed, that's already, audit's already done, we're sucking that up this year. Any more questions? Okay, part of the final adoption, we have a public hearing. We have to adopt it by October 1st. Okay, reading the budget, this is pretty simple. You know, how much money you have to start the year with, that's important. What revenue do you expect to receive during the year? You know, how much money you expect to spend during the year, and how much money you're gonna have left at the end of the year. That's, you know, really the mathematical formula that we put in this big chart. And this, you saw this last year, and you don't need to look at the stuff below. This is the formula we have to turn into the state, 2 different forms now, one for tax-related funds and others for non-tax-related funds. And across the top is what we're gonna talk about. And this is where it's got a little dicey last year. So on the left side, you see your fund number, 1,000. We'll just talk about the top one. That's the 1,000, called the general fund. The appropriation, and we're gonna go through each one of these. You know, it's basically what you're spend, the cash you won't have on reserve, and that's your total requirement. Then on the other side of the black line, you have your expenditures. We have cash you have on hand, non-revenue, tax revenue, total revenue all combined, your total resources, okay? I'm sorry. My phone's off, I know who it is. And then with the amount of bills you're gonna do, it gives you, you add all that up, you're gonna have the end of estimated cash at the end of the year. And the key word we had last year was, what's a balanced budget? To us, a balanced budget is, yeah, I make $100, I can spend $100, right? That's balanced. For this, if I have $100 and $50 in savings, I can spend $150, and that's balanced. You can't go over the amount of revenue you have and the amount of savings you have. Okay, that's kind of that. If you do, that's not balanced. And I know that was a question we had last year. And so, and it says right on the form, that's a balanced budget. So, you know, if you think of it in a household, it doesn't work like that and it kind of does work for a household, because if you have, you know, $500 in savings, make $1,000, at the end in the month, you spend $1,500 and still be, you know, zero at the end of the month. Okay, we're gonna go through kind of each one of these. I think I went backwards. Come on. Okay, now there's cash available, and that's at the end of the year, we know we have an estimate, it's called an estimate, how much money we have at the end of the year, and that's what we start the budgeting process with. And that number changes as bills through that 6 months come along, 3 months after the end of the year, sometimes a year, but we can't go back that far. So during that 3 month, that number can change as if another bill comes in. I'll give you an example. We spend money in June, our Visa bill comes in July. Well, we spent that money in June, so that will go backwards and take money out of that year once the bill comes in. Because you want to, you know, whenever we get revenue, that's when you document, or wherever you earn revenue, that's when you document, and whenever you have the expense, that's when you document, not when the bill comes in. Whenever you have the expense or the revenue, you generate the revenue. If we don't get the revenue, you know, 2 or 3 months, it still goes in the monthly earning. And then the same with the expense. If you say we spend someone to rebuild the building and they wait 3 months to send us a bill, it still goes back to when we actually incurred the expense. And so that's when that cash can change a little bit toward the end of the year, because we're still trying to close the year out. Okay. So that's the starting cash. Then you have non-tax revenue. That's this line right here, and that's everything else except for the taxes. So that would be anticipated revenue budget. Okay, that's stuff like, and it's going to tell you like, so anything other than taxes, fees, court, fines, donations, everything. That's non-tax revenue. Then let's go over. So it says right there, and then you have the property tax revenue, which is column 6, which they kind of check you up. But that's right. That's right here. 6. Okay. Property tax revenue is generated by an mill levy, and that's really basically told by us. Okay, we get a sheet. It's a funny thing. We get a sheet tells what the value of the property in the town is. We fill out a sheet and tells us how much money we can draw based on a mill, right? We have matched our mills since I don't know how long. And so it's not like the town doesn't have excess mills that we can not draw on the taxes. There is a law that says if we didn't have that money budgeted to spend, we cannot draw all the mills. And so you could take less mills if we had a budgeted and needed. We have never had that problem. Then if you say you can take, let's say 100 mills, and we decide to only take 90 because that's what our budget said, those would be leftover mills that we could take the next couple of years down the road if we needed it. So it's still sitting there, but we just didn't draw it that year. But if you take too much tax money based on your budget, the auditors catch it, and they say you collected too much revenue. And you get a big no-go for that. And once again, that's determined, by the state for the most part. We fill out the form, we turn it into them, and just tell them how much we're gonna draw.
Have you received any notification or anything from the state of what we're facing this coming year with the reduced property taxes and all that? Not even a percentage of what it was? Oh, boy.
Oh, boy, yeah. When I say estimate, until we do the form, until they actually send us I call it the letter with the yellow strip on it, it's very important. It tells us what the tax value is and how to calculate the mills. Until they send that out, which is usually late June, early July timeframe. And so we're already started in the budget process, so the estimate is, we're ready for tax revenue, really just an estimate until we do that form. And there's a lot of hearsay that the tax revenue is gonna go down. From what I understand from the prior mayor who's kind of had his ear to the down, listening to people, this year's not gonna affect us much. It's the following year's really gonna affect us. And so, but we don't know. And then, so we get some tax, we get some money from the county, right? And I call them and I say, how much are we gonna get? He goes, I can't tell you. We don't know. It all depends on how many people, do this. And so I tell them, I say, okay, I got it. I'll just continue on with our little path. You know what I'm saying? Of where we think we're gonna be, and because they can't give us an estimate on anything. Now, the gas money, we'll get a thing on the gas money. It tells us what we're gonna get, usually by June. And then our share money from the, I'm trying to think of the name of that. But if we get a report from the state, we get a check from the state, and they'll tell us how much that is too. But the stuff we get from the county for like licensing and stuff like that, it's just a pure estimate.
How much does this refund that we all get on property, like last year's $400, does that affect us?
Well, when they finally do the statement to us, when they send it out to us, that's all taken out. So that refund actually was more money than the state took in. So they just refunded it back to taxpayers for the property taxes. So it really didn't affect us at all. We got exactly what we wanted, and it's kind of just been slowly going up the same amount for the last 5 years, 6 years since I've been here. So I can kind of guess where it's gonna be this year, but the year after that, it's gonna, I don't know, I can't tell you because there's so much news about it. No one's talking about it. So hopefully they'll give us some information, but I know it's gonna be tighter as we go along. Does that mean that the state kicks in more money to us? Maybe, I don't know. Because obviously, these little towns and stuff have that run, but it really affects the big towns, it really does. We get about $380,000 in taxes, about half of revenue in the general fund.
I just know that my property taxes this year went down about $400. I was thinking, well, if everyone's did, then our mill levy is gonna go down and all of that,
Yes. And we only get, 4 to 6% or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's, even though it's $400, you go down a little bit less, but it could be, but it's still.
But it happened to everybody.
It happens to everybody. But that's why they need to use this formula for mill levies. And inside that form, back at the state, they actually they figure out a number to put in the formula to keep the taxes like this. And so that's why a mill changes every year based on the formula.
Mm-hmm.
And so until we get the form, it's hard to say what that's going to look like and how much we're going to get. But the state, they do that to keep, to prevent, and they do that with property tax. They don't want it to go like this and this all the time. So your property tax has that same type of arbitrary number they come up with to kind of keep your taxes, like this versus this. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And once again, the Department of Revenue is the one that determines, what the value of our land is here in town. Okay. And we just can't impose whatever tax we want. We can ask the town to raise taxes, and they have to vote on it. There are certain levies that we can do for example, the fireman's retirement. We can do a levy without their approval up to, 4 mills? 4 mills for the retirement of firefighters without asking the voters to vote on it. And right now, I did a calculation on it, and we're paying about $20,000, $25,000 a year on that. It's just going to grow. So when we do the budget this year, we may look at a special levy to come forward and see if we're short. Because if you're short, you're short. And so, but we'll look at that, you know, and that's something that's covered in Montana code too, you know, we'll have to go through that process to do it. We'd have to start it pretty quick to get it done, because the tax bills, they start doing the tax bills in June, working on the tax bill in June and July, so we're might be a little short on that this year, hard to say. Okay, how much, do you expect to count? Okay, that's a non-tax revenue, like I said, that's from the fees and services, that's from, you know, the enterprise fund, water and sewer rates for those funds, you know, swimming pool fees for the general fund, park fees, court fees, dog licenses, which one? Fingerprints, which is becoming a pretty profitable thing to the town. That all, those fees for services. And then you have, like I said, fine enforcement for the tickets. And then what's really come good is lately we do have some money in the bank. We are earning some interest on our money in the bank, almost 4% right now, which really saved us the last couple of years, thanks to Gina. And then we other governmental transfers, you know, which in time and shares, like I said, we get from the state. That makes up the rest of the non-tax revenue. And then we'll talk about the appropriations. That's actually what we're going to spend. Okay, when we appropriate, we're going to spend. That's what we actually look at that budget and say where everything's going to be spent at. And you guys, you know, you guys was actually approve those expenditures, you know, in the end. So how much money do you plan to spend? The appropriation for each fund is limited to the fiscal year and approved by you guys, and it cannot be used next year. So, you know, every year, say the department head come, have got a little bit of money, kind of shift it to next year. No, it doesn't go like that. We can't do this. We don't do encumbrances and stuff like that. So it's, you know, it ends that year. And you know, you can't, and that appropriations cannot be exceeded except by your approval. And going to public too. And then the budget amendments required a public hearing and a majority of vote to have a vote on that. So when you look at this sheet here, so you have the cash available, the non-tax revenue, the property tax equals all the money we have in the bank, if you will, on that side of the right side of the funds. Okay. It said by law, financial must be balanced so that the appropriations plus the budget cash reserve does not exceed the total resources, which is that line. So we have, so you go back over here, you have line 1, appropriations, your cash reserve, which you want to have, that's your total requirement, and the total requirements and the total resources have to equal. Or you could have, you can have less requirement, but you can't have more requirement than you have total resources to cover. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they have to balance.
Yes, yeah.
What happens if you appropriate less?
That's okay, you have more money in the bank. I'll give you an example. Say we got in $600,000 and we're only going to spend $500,000, something like that. You have $100,000 left. One, you could put that money in the capital fund, okay? And that's the one way to do it, is put it in the capital fund so you can save up for a project like sidewalks, streets, anything like that. That's considered okay. If you don't put it in the capital fund and it's the general fund, you have $100,000 more than you spent, you have to lower your bills. Yeah. And it's funny, you turn in your bills before your budget is usually passed. It's a funny thing. Okay. And then this is at the end of the year, after that's total up, this is the estimated cash balance at the end of the year. Okay. And if you can see this one, this is kind of really balance because your budgeted cash reserve is the estimated cash you're going to have at the end of the year, which is your reserve. Okay, this is the bar chart of accounts, the way it works. So you have the government funds, the funds, and fiduciary funds. They all have numbers that you have to specifically go by for the funds. Like your 1,000 is your general fund, special revenue foods always starts with a 2, your debt service starts with a 3, capital projects start with a 4, and your permanent fund starts with an 8. Just the way it is. So when you look at our funds, the general fund is 1,000. You go down to the other funds, your enterprise funds, that's why our water fund starts with a 5, and our sewer fund starts with a 5, and your board starts with a 5. And they tell us, and you have, it's a pretty thick book, you look through it, and you go, okay, that's what it is, that's the number. And that works the same way for the accounts. So here's an example of some of the accounts. The thousands, are your balance sheet accounts, use your cash, taxes, inventories, your asset accounts are all in the thousands. Revenue is 3,000 account on it. So you can have licensing, license and permitting, governmental revenue, charges for service, fines, et cetera, et cetera. And your expenditures accounts always start with a 4. And that makes, so when we turn in our budget, we turn in our accounts, it matches, so they can put together, it matches every other municipalities' funds, and it matches the federal government, so they can report to the federal government where the funds are being spent. And I'll show you, right, so, and this is the object code, so you have the fund, the account, and the object. And so the object, 1,000 is always personal service, payroll, healthcare, stuff like that for your personnel, okay? 2 are supplies, 300 are services, 400 are building supplies, 500 are fixed charges, 600 are debt service, 700 grants, 800 other transfers, depreciation, and 900 are your capital layout. So if you look at this, when you talk about the GDP for the nation, this is where they get some of the answers from. The 200 are supplies and services, and that's what they count. How much we spend on supply and services. They put all that together, give the big number at the federal level. And that's why they make us use these bar chart accounts. So you can see what all the government's spending their money on. Questions with that? Yeah, so and the auditors check this to make sure one of the things they do when they do the samples is they make sure our expenses match the chart of accounts. So we can't say, hey, I'm gonna pay a phone bill, which is a service. I can't put it in a 200 supplies. For example, if I can do tires for my truck, if I go buy the tires, that's a supply I put the tires on, right? But if I have less swab to it, it's a 300. That's a service. They're putting our tires on for us. It's just, so that's when I say that there's some of that art there, because sometimes it gets a little fishy, when you get the weeds on stuff. But you normally, you follow that chart accounts right down to the key the best you can.
Do items ever fall into 2 different categories?
Oh, yeah.
If you bought the tires and paid somebody else to put them on?
If you bought the tires,
Then it's a 2
and then you put in, someone else came over and you put it down in 2 different bills, they'd be in 2 different locations.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay, and it's more chart account sheet, 200 supplies, then you break it down by the 10s, 20s, and 30s. And like the 10s are off supplies, 20s are operating supplies, the 30s repair, maintenance, fuel, motor, stuff like that. So they break this down right down to you, for you. So they can kind of look at your budget and tell you where you're spending money. And you can pull up fuel for the entire town with that 331 number, see how much fuel we spend.
Do you guys break it down this way on like our claims forms that we look at?
Yep.
Is that gonna be on there?
That's why they're all on there.
Have a
like
really
that.
good time going through these codes.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes. And that's why we're going through, because you can see it, and it's not like we make it up. It's like, it seems like, why am I going to do this? No, it's told us to do it.
I recall in the booklet that we received a couple of years ago that all of this was given to us. Has it been given to you new folks? All of this breakdown,
This is why we want to do the class today. And I can give you the chart part of accounts, but it's not this, and you can go online. That's the best way to go look at it. You look up Montana bar chart of accounts, it takes you right to that page.
Okay.
And you don't have to print the booklet.
Gotcha.
Bars chart of accounts, and it's right there.
Office supplies are too expensive, we don't print it anymore.
Yeah,
It's too much paper.
it's a lot, it's a pretty long book. And they usually don't, it usually doesn't change that often. It changed, last time I noticed it changed when they had the COVID numbers in. We got COVID expenses, they track that. So here's what cars, this is what our funds look like. Okay, I know that's a little hard to read, because I'm trying to get them all on there, but those are all our funds right there, okay? And so you have the general fund, the planning fund, tax incremental fund, which is going away. It's sunset, and just to give you a heads up, that's sunsetted. We're gonna have to give that money back, it appears, to the county. And we'll get some of that money back in tax. So what happens in these two funds here, the tax and targeted ones, those money, we get all the tax money from them districts. So the airport, so when they set up the TED, every new construction, we got 100% of the taxes on. And so the TED grows and grows a lot quicker than the other accounts. But you have to use it for certain purposes. Then it will sunset. And the school hates this, every other government hates this because nobody gets taxes but that district. So now we have to give back about $300,000 of the TIF money. We give that back to the county. Now the school is gonna get 80% of that, and they don't even know it's coming yet. And so it's gonna screw their budget up for this year, big time. And we just figured out that last year, we gotta give it back. We talked to the county about it a little bit, so we're still working on that, see how that's gonna go, because they really never had that problem. And the reason why we can't spend that is because you can only spend it in the district where it's at. So the airport can spend it at the airport on public stuff, okay? But that little district we have over here by that Ace Hardware, it is a tiny one road. We did the railroad crossing. That's all we can do. We don't own the road. The county owns the road. So they get the money back because we couldn't do anything with the money.
What was it for?
So those couple buildings they put out there, I think there was a fabrication, and there was another one when the county RCEDA helped them get grants. You know, we used to have to pay their employees come through here, and then I would pay them so they could pay the employees. They got a grant for that when they first got here. And so that kind of all nestled together when they set that up. But, you know, why don't we pave the roads for them? Well, it's already paved, and it's actually pretty good, so they're not actually good, so they're gonna get that money back.
Robert, if we're gonna get rid of those two funds, will we get to rezone that area? Did they happen to talk about that?
Not yet. It's kind of we just heard about this.
Okay.
You know.
I'll flip that.
And you'll hear more about the airport stuff coming later on. We got some plans for that, so then you have the building code, and that fund can only be used for building code. So 90% of that money goes out to our contractor who does the building inspections. And for years, we built too much money up in that fund, and we got nailed every year by the audit. Too much money. And the only thing they kept telling us to do is lower our fees. You have to lower your fees. So we're right where we need to be right now. That's a minimum amount of money in the fund. I mean, we used to have, 300,000 and almost up to quite a bit of money, $200,000 in there.
Robert started.
You know, it was just too much money in that fund because you can only use it for building code enforcement. The lighting districts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're getting a 6th this year. We have to do a new development. We got another lighting districts coming in. And that's been a thorn in some people's side. But all that is their electricity for their lights. We collect it through their tax bill, and we pay the electricity company. Now, theoretically, if the pole breaks and something like that happens, we would have to repair it, then we'd have to assess a higher number the next year. But we've never had a pole go down like no. Actually, Northwest Energy went in there and put the lights in for us. About 45 years ago, said the bill was going to go down. No, it went up, and last year was the first time the bill went down. So they actually paid for the lights by jacking the price up. So now, last year, it actually went down for the first time for lighting districts. Police training fund, okay, that's money we get from the insurance proportionment from the state. We fill out a form, they give us money for the fire's retirement and for police training. and that money can only be used for training events. Going to Helena for training, any training we're gonna do around here, firing, going to the range, and stuff like that. It can cover mileage back and forth from school, when they go to school. But that's what that fund is for, and we get money every year for that fund right there. And right now, and you see, this is the budget for this year, so we were gonna spend some money out of that, as you can see. Then we have the gas apportionment tax. That's just the tax money we get in for roads. And that fund, we can take 25% of that money and put it down into a fund we created last year, sewer capital assets for equipment for the streets. We learned that little trick last year.
Not sewer.
Not sewer.
Streets.
I said streets.
Well,
Street. Yeah, street.
I was like, wait, what?
I can't even see the chart. so I'm
Stop
sorry.
taking it out of the general fund.
And that's where we started that street equipment fund last year, because we moved the money from the year before, this year and next year we'll do it again, so we can buy equipment with that money. And that's the way we track it. We could have tracked it in the gas money, but once again, you can only use a percentage of it. It doesn't look right. So we learned a trick where we bought I think it was with a sweeper, how they did it, because they had all sorts of equipment. You do this, it'll keep track of it a lot easier. So we started that.
We're adding a little bit of streets, Twin Creek Phase 2. So Stephen will go out and run that for me this week, and then I have to turn in, Gina just gave me the map that came in the mail, and then I'll turn that added streets
Oh, we can do street mileage.
mileage
That's
in
it.
by April 1st, and then they'll give us more,
A little bit
it's
more
not a
money.
lot. More for us, not enough for us to take care of the streets that we keep taking on, but we do get a little bit more.
And then the next fund is the water fund, and that's operational, operational maintenance of the water, okay? And then the one below it is the water capital assets. And that's where you see, on the bill, that's the capital asset coming in. So when we have the future projects, that's where we can actually do something. It cost us, what, $1 million to do one street last year. So you can see, and that was our cost. We got a big grant for it. And so our biggest concern right now is they're doing this lead survey in consternation, and they keep on saying they're gonna force us. If we can't prove that there's not lead on the ground, we may have to replace all the pipes, including the homeowners up to their house. And that's ongoing right now, so you can see that could cost a ton of money for the town. And I don't, but they keep pushing it back a little bit, because obviously no one has that type of money. But that's coming our way soon.
And if feds are gonna do it, they can do the grants.
And most likely they will.
Yeah.
But they only give you grants at 90%. Normally you have to put funds into. So you look at it, that, we got about, in the asset account right now. Well, this is what we appropriated for this number in the account. Okay.
So we're appropriating.
I'll show you what it is.
Here.
Yeah, and that was from water leaks and stuff like that. And the next one is, that's the street one we did, the water leak repair. We got a grant for that. We still got some money coming in. But after that's done, here, the next couple, that fund will go away. Streets, sewer capital, same thing. And then you have the airport fund, which is the operational fund, operation maintenance. And the project fund is where we get the FAA grants and the aeronautical grants going to that. Usually about 90% we get a grant for. We've been fortunate the last 2 years. They've been working some of these projects at 100%, like the fuel tank 100%, paving 100%, and then the cost that we had to pay, Montana Aeronautics picked up the cost, so we didn't have to put any into that, which just really saved their lump because they didn't have any money to do that projects. And so we got to get that gas, the fuel thing for free, the fuel tank for free. And once that gets put in, they're going to start making some money finally. Hopefully it's going to die down, but they're starting to have some more revenue coming in because they are bare bones right now.
Does that revenue stay with them?
Yes. And so each one of these funds have specific rules you can use with it. Okay. The airport fund has a lot of FAA rules with it. you know, they basically own the airport. We can say we own it. They bought the land, a lot of land for it. Once we take a grant, we tell them we're gonna do all this stuff, and we take the grant, it's called grant assurances, and they can come back to us if we don't do it. So they basically control everything we do. So all their tax money goes back into that fund. And so even though we break out the TED portion of it, but the money we get from the airport hangars up there, that goes into that account. And so, yeah, and that's just something we can't do around, that's the feds, they come locked down. And the last one we have is the fireman disability account. That's kind of like the training fund. It could be for training or retirement. If we had a different police retirement, we could probably put that money into retirement, but we, firemen put it in their retirement fund, which subsidizes some of the retirement.
So can I ask sorry.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Committed, what do you mean by committed?
This is money we've done this month, whatever, this would be this month,
Money we spent this
this
month?
month, yeah.
Okay.
This
and
is
then
year to
obviously-
date, yeah.
Okay. And
This
then what
is-
we budgeted for the entire year?
Yeah, this would be that's the original appropriation for the year.
Gotcha.
And then if we do a budget amendment, then it will change the current appropriation. And then this year is what's available left to spend.
Gotcha. So on water, the water fund, $30,000 so far this month.
Yep.
And that's for, what did you say that was?
Any of the expenses.
So just like,
You've already.
power, all the
Yep,
things,
all that
everything you
little
said
stuff.
there.
Everything that comes out of that,
Okay.
everything that comes out of that fund will come, for that month will be there.
Gotcha.
Including wages?
Everything that comes out of the fund.
All right.
And then here's our cash report. Looks very similar. The fund part, all the funds are exactly the same. The difference is we have the cash, the budget, revenue and expenses doesn't connect to the money we have in the bank, only when the reconciliation, okay? So you tell us how much we can spend out of a fund, that's in the budget actual, that's what we're spending, that's what we're looking at here, okay? That's what you tell us to spend. This is, the cash report is actually how much money we have in the fund, okay? And so you can see we're, the general fund has got $336,000 in it right now. Okay, and we'll probably get another big tax check, but we have 3 or 4 months to spend, so that will go down. More down about 250 per rookie when we have cash available next year. You can see the planning fund, $250 in it right now. That went negative for the first part of this year because we had the auditors found that we took a loan out, 2,000 whatever, not even that, and it was never paid back. So we ended up having to, take our money out of the planning fund and put it in the general fund. Normally we just, it was accounting there. Normally you guys say, no, we're just gonna give the money. Because you can take any money out of the general fund and give it to anything you want. It doesn't work the other way around. Okay, so, yeah, so I can't take planning money and put it in the general fund, but you can put general fund money into the planning fund. But they wrote it down as a loan and forgot about it, and so we had to pay it back. No loss, because we don't take much out of the planning fund right now anyway.
What is that used for?
Well, it could be anything for asking HDR to look at stuff, but for the most part now
We don't have much coming in revenue wise for the planning.
and we get that money, I think, we get that money because we get that money from the building code enforcement, we get a portion when it comes in. Yes, that's when they do a little bit. We can't manage.
5%.
5% when and it doesn't go very far.
That's all that feeds it is
Yeah.
5%?
No, that's what we get.
That's what we get, but it's only off of building.
Uh-huh.
And only if the building permit that's being pulled even has a plan review fee done by the town.
Gotcha.
So usually a new build, an addition on a home are good examples, and those are rare. So that's why it's so small. You just don't have all of that coming in. Yeah.
And so the fund, the cash report here, same fund, like I said. So this is the beginning year's balance, or beginning balance for the month, received, transferred out, dispersed, transferred, and then you have the ending balance. And more we just look, and that all matches, you know, when the reconciliation, you see the reconciliation, that's when we say we have so much money in the bank. That's this ending balance number right here. When I say we have, 4.4 million, that's all these numbers here. And that's what we're making our interest income on, which is a good thing. Okay.
What are you talking about? We made $822 in the building code fund.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
because we had 3 new bills in Twin. Yeah, you're right.
So that's like the formal portion of the class portion about kind of ideas of the whole budget. I just kind of walk through the way we're planning on doing the budget process this year, which is like we've done every year. So right now we found these things called zero budget sheets, which I literally put together for each department head, each fund, each account, with all the object codes in it. And I tell them what they spent last year, and then they go in there and they do their figuring of what they're gonna spend this year. With Gene and I, we go through the big bills and add that to the budget, because they don't know what wages are gonna be, they don't know what electricity is gonna be, all that, IT. Those are just big bills we have to break up through all the funds, all the departments. So we'll put that in there for them. But mostly what they're looking at is how many chemicals, how many tools, how many bolts, how much gas. They give a pretty good figure. They give us a figure on what they think they're gonna use. And what a lot of people used to do is just say, give me the same money and add 5%. Well, that doesn't work. When I first got here, we only had about 4 or 5 object codes. Everything went into those 5 object codes. Everything was just professional services, That's not the way it's supposed to be. So we made that up, from there. And we expanded out, and that's where they can look at it. They look at object codes. That's right, chemicals. That right, this, right down to the nitty gritty. It helps them out. Yeah.
So your dispersed column, that money is dispersed into other,
No,
it's going out?
Yeah, that's what we dispersed out. Yeah.
So how do you guys delineate between transfers out and dispersed out?
That's the funny question. I knew you were gonna ask that question. So, that's the computer.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, so disbursements are like checks and stuff like that. Some of the ACH can be transfers out. Okay, so but it matches what we spend. I laugh at it because we have this conversation all the time. It's like, I don't know why they have that there. Now, you can see like the big transfers here if you were transferring to another fund, but that's where it would go. But even some of the ACH is considered transfers or something because it's a different, you're transferring money. And so example, so when you look at the lighting districts, we pay this bill by ACH, okay, not a check. And so it's a
Gotcha,
transfer.
so it's
Yeah.
really just, it's still leaving the account, but in a
Yeah.
different check or credit.
Oh, the program's kind of funny, because even when Gina does reconciliation, like you and I would do reconciliation. Oh, here's my checks and here's my deposits. Simple. In our program, there's lovely checks, there's lovely deposits, and then there's the thing called basically other. And it can be a negative or a positive. It's a complete funny animal. And so, but it works out. It works out in the end. Once you figure it out, you track where they go.
And so this cash report is for March so
This
far?
one this one I wrote around yesterday.
Okay,
Yeah, so that's where we are yesterday.
gotcha.
Okay, so the next thing, so after the department heads turn in their stuff, we take it, put it all together, pull out the wish list stuff, because we always ask them for a wish list. None of their stuff is wish, it's all needed. But you can see from the year before, we pull out the wish list and put it on a list for you guys. Okay, the stuff, because we're always over budget. We don't have the money. And so we pull that out and say, okay, here's the things that aren't needed as much as things, some things, 90% of our budget is already set for us. We don't have no control over it. It's, power bill, gas, chemicals. set. And so it's not like we're making a guess number, we're just going off what they did, maybe add a little bit to it. And then wages, we do the wage part, see how much we're gonna spend there. And then they come up with wish lists, do we wanna pay for EMTs, do we want extra hose? You wanna do something with the parks, like a new swing set or something like that. That, we pull that off the side, so we try to balance the budget the best we can with enough reserve. You have to have a reserve. By law, you don't need a reserve, but we'd be completely stupid if we didn't have a reserve, So we pull out a reserve about, that amount of money, and then we come to you guys and say, okay, here's what is needed based on, and the mayor looks at it and says, yeah, that's what's needed. And we bring it to you and he says, we start playing with numbers. That's when we play with the numbers. You put this in here, how much reserve we have left over. And that's where you guys come in. So in the last few years, a lot of people have not really questioned the budget at all until we get right to the end. But the real questions come in right as we're going through each budget. I'll give you an example. The water, okay. The water rates went up. The water rates are linked to the expenditures. So the only way you lower the water rates is by lowering the expenditures.
Repeat
That
that.
fund,
Repeat that.
the only way you lower water rates is by lowering expenses.
Okay.
Because we have a requirement, that fund has a requirement, we have to make 10% more than what we spend. There's a 10% requirement on it, and that comes from the feds. And if we don't make that, then we can get audit finding, which we had in the past. We have raised enough money to cover our expenses plus the 10%.
But isn't it not just an audit finding, it also then comes back on our bonds as well?
Yeah, so if we don't make enough money in the water and sewer, they can come back and literally take back our grants and make them loans. I mean, it looks like we own the water facility, and no, we don't own it. We signed it over when they took the big grant. And and we turn the report in once a year, and as long as it goes smooth, like, I don't have it with you, but they have certain requirements that we have to have. Right now, it's $160,000 is restricted in that fund. If we touch that money, we have to call them. Okay? Same with, we have to have a 990 on water bond. We have to have a year's bond reserved just for the bond. And that's all in our restricted accounts. I don't know if it showed on the cash, I wasn't sure on the cash report. When you break down the cash report by each account, it would show you. But so there's certain restrictions we have on those funds we can't touch. And it's because we signed over the plan to the feds, if you will. And I remember a couple of years ago, they were going to try to lower the water rates from what they were. They came down and they said, okay, you start doing this stuff, we're going to take back all our grants and we're just going to get loans. Because they expect us, the town does, to be good stewards of the plant and to maintain the plant. We were given money from other taxpayers to get our water set up, right? Now we have to maintain it. If we don't, if the idea is let's have low water rates, right? And then hope for a grant later on, they see that and they say, you ain't getting shit, because your people are not paying for their water. Why should someone in the county pay for your water? So they do have these restrictions on that 110%, and they just have to be good. That's where when we talk about water, that's a whole other subject, but that's kind of those restrictions on some of those funds that we have that you have to go about and maintain, because you really don't want to piss off the feds in any way, shape, or form. Because if you get that audit, or you realize you're not doing your requirements correctly, you don't get any funds. No matter what they are. I went to a sewer thing up in Kalispell for a class, and one of the entities up there got in trouble because they always spend their budget a few years in a row. The feds will give them no grants. They're just blackballed until they get fixed.
But you also have to plan too for future.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
future
yeah.
projects.
Okay,
So there's a lot that goes into it.
What they do, I didn't really follow them up, but they have to figure it out. They just don't get nothing. And they're on the blackball list. You can get on the blackball list at FAA real quickly they're just pissing somebody off.
And as soon as you're blackballed on one, this was during our growth policy update, it was a piece that Montana Department of Commerce came back and reminded us, if you mess up on a grant that you got and didn't fulfill what you were supposed to do, blackball, just like Robert said, and no more grants will come to you until you've cleaned up your problem. Pay it back, write a sorry note, whatever that might look like to them. And she said that is probably one of the hardest things for smaller towns that are trying to collect money for sidewalks or sewer or water. If you at any point in time were behind on your loan or your bond, or you got blackballed because of a grant that you didn't fulfill its fees, then she goes, you can go 10, 15 years sometimes before a town kind of comes back into the light of like, oh, okay, maybe they've learned their lesson, and then they can come back again. And it's pretty tricky. That is something that I really learned and even did some extra sessions with Danny Arps, so she could really explain that piece, because that's scary. And that's why Gina is such a stickler about all receipts and meetings and everything that had to be held for the ARPA grant. Because she has to account for every single thing that we did with that money, or time that was spent, or anything. And she has to turn it into the state. And at any point, if they question her on that, and they don't like it, or they don't question you, they'll question you first, then they question how we spent that money, and if we can't come up with the right answer, then we have to pay it back.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That grants are kind of tricky.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's good stuff, but it always comes with a lot of strings attached. And you're giving up power, you're taking a grant. They're great, because they're doing it for, they want you to use that money for what it's specifically used for. Figure out how many people don't use it and get caught, you know. So.
Hey, really quick before you leave here, because somebody else had asked us, another department head, we have all these areas that are for capital assets for sewer and capital assets for water. Are we gonna be able to, or can we do this, you guys? Can there be a building or an admin asset fund?
So we have
Capital.
We have a few, so the only funds you see here are ones that got money to.
Okay.
Okay, there are some other, we do have a regular capital asset fund, has no money in it. If we have spent out money, we gotta pay the money back, et cetera. But this is where the money's at. There's no money in any other funds. But in our chart of accounts, if we put $1 in it, would show up here. But, so we can have as many capital asset funds as you want, but you gotta be able to have the money to put in. And so at the end of the year, when we do the budget, the first thing we're gonna look at is, here's how much we want, here's how much we're getting, here's how much we're gonna spend, or here's how much we want to spend. And at that point in time, we say, put the money into a capital asset fund. You know, that's the only way you can save. You can't keep saving in the general fund because you get nailed. Because you have too much money in your general fund. You can have, counties can have 50% in their general fund, and we are less than that. So, you know, I think we want to be around the 20% level, is about average, normal. You start getting higher than that, you know, you can, you know, and an audit will look at you, if you don't have any in there, anything could blow up our budget then. You know, snow could blow our budget big time. I think we spent, how much money we spent on the snow that 1 year? $20,000?
$20,000 in 24 hours.
That was the budget.
$20,000 in 24 hours.
And Cedar Lake just got 3 feet of snow last weekend. We're just been lucky. So questions with the cash, or let's go back to the budget. So after we put it all, after we present it to you, and that's when we come together with each one of those budgets. If you have a question and at any time, remember, we're working for you. We don't expect to, you know, hey, just come and take this budget. No, ask a ton of questions, because really you guys are signing off on the budget. We ask questions of department heads, you know, during the budget workshops. The worst place to ask questions when we're going to finalize the budget. Because that's when the public comes here. And the public is asking questions. And it's not me sitting in the back here with my budget going, okay, I hope I can get around to all you guys get past it. By then, we should put all on the same sheet of music and saying to the public, this is what we need. You may not agree with it all, right? but you would understand where it's at and why it's the way it is, you know. And then you guys, and if you don't pass, you don't pass, and you go back. But hopefully we get to a point where we come to pass it. We've already got an agreement because you have to ask all the questions. You can come talk to Jeannie, you can come talk to me, send an email, whatever it is, because, you know, if there's a question, we'd rather ask it early on, you know, than sit in the meeting right at the last minute and say, hey, by the way, you know, Stevensville looks like a schmucks. That's why Stevensville has a horrible reputation in this entire state. It is horrible. No, you talk to anybody and you tell you work for Stevensville, they say sorry. And everybody knows it. And it's not just from this time. It goes back quite a few years when the auditors had to even pull out of Stevensville because they couldn't do an audit. They couldn't do audits. And so infighting does hurt us, and it hurts our audit. It hurts our audit. When we're out on a sheet of music and someone says something different, we get a $20,000 increase in our audit. Just like that, because the auditor has to then check everything out, because his audit gets audited by his peers. And if he misses something in his audit, he doesn't get to do audits anymore for 3 years. Ruins their business. So our last audit was up quite a few thousands of dollars when they see the infighting and stuff going on. It's just more money to them. It does, you know, it's just something, that's why it's early. My whole point is get involved in the budget early, get your question answered, try to understand it. You know, we sit up there and talk about the budget at the last minute, and the answer is this. This is the answer from the state. You know, I don't care what the town people think it is. The state says this. This is the law. You know, they may not like me spending money on certain things. People may not, you know, want poop bags into the park. You know, I don't know, stuff like that. You get the idea. You know, we do spend money on poop bags in the park because it's just the way it is. And then trash, you have to pick up the trash. You know, so every time we put a trash, you know, we need trash cans at the park. Every time we put down a trash can, it costs us what, $300 every couple of months. You know, and over time.
Along with the trash bag that goes in the trash can.
Yeah, and of course we go pick it up. And so everything adds, and so that's what we look at when we try to put stuff together and give a good estimate of what it's gonna cost to do stuff. But once again, it's your budget. Ask a bunch of questions. You know, I'll give you, and for this, everybody talks about this, the water rates. Okay, after the budget comes in this year, we do the recalculation of the water rates. It's that simple. Who controls what we spend at the water plant? You guys. So you can't, so it's not me, you know, saying, hey, raise the rates. You know what I'm saying? Because it has to have 110% in that fund. And so when we look at, when Stephen comes in with his budget for the water, scrutinize it. You know, and you can, and unfortunately, power's really expensive, the chemicals are really expensive. A lot of that stuff's already baked in the cake. We can't change a lot of that, but there's some stuff we can change, you know. So that's why I say ask good questions, get involved, and come in and we'll walk you through it anytime. Yeah. The more you know about it, the less easy comes off us because you know about it. And when someone says, you know, why are we doing this? Well, this. So we're working for you. The mayor puts it together. You know, you saw the first week. The mayor puts it together and presents it. You guys are the approving authority on everything we do. And so we work for you. We work for you. In the end. And I say that every year. No one hardly ever comes and asks. There's a few who ask questions. But really just, you know, if there's a question, there's no dumb question. You know.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I can give you a dumb question.
That's all it could be.
Now it's a challenge.
Yeah, come up with a dumb, I'm sure there's a dumb question out there. But really, that's how this is, we see this stuff every day. You guys see it, you know, once or twice a month, you know. So it's kind of, you know, oh shit, you know, call, just ask, you know, because we go back and forth among ourselves sometimes with real okay, looking at it too, you know, because when bills come in and stuff like that, it's the whole process before it even comes to you guys, you know, and usually the guy that spends the money is not sitting on the couch, not sitting here. So it's like that rule. I can tell you something, Okay, what did he tell you? We're buying blue paint, next thing you know, we're on pink, right? So just call, because we work for you. And then hopefully we go through the budget process, get it done early. We're gonna try to do wages early this year because we want to get it approved before June, because then we don't have to spend hours doing back pay, right? Not that we has to be done, it's gotta be turned in by one October, or we get a big finding. And once again, that finding, they look at our audits, and that's how they look at grants, and determine grants too, how fiscal are we, how disciplined are we here? And so, and the mill levies have gotta be turned in literally like the first part of July. And same with the lighting districts. You know, we have to turn that into the county, so they can go get them printed and figured out on the tax bills, so they can get them out on time. And they hound us to death, starting like 1 July, what about lighting, what about lighting? You're like, well, we haven't got to the budgeting process yet, but it's still simple. Look how much they spent, how much the energy is going up or down, you have a little reserve, that's what it is. It's a simple math, it's a math problem. You know, we do every year on that. And last year, it went down. Which was good. But some are high, because they're not all on the same rhythm of people paying. Someone doesn't pay the tax and we don't get the money. You know, we see that at the airport, we see that in the lighting districts. And you really don't notice it in the general fund that much, but the lighting districts you do, because there's not that many houses. You know, airport, somebody misses the payment, you know, you're out that much money, you know, a couple $100. And they live on a $4,800 tax bill a year. So you can see when someone pays their taxes. Questions on anything?
I have a statement,
Okay.
and I'm wondering if the staff has gotten any of this. I'll get communications, put it that way, from people who go, we got $4 million in the bank, how come you're charging this and that? They don't understand the process. I try to tell them by law, we can't touch that.
They can't touch it, yeah. Yep. And it doesn't, the one that really matters the most is the general fund.
Mm-hmm.
Because the general fund is the tightest. It's the fire, it's the admin, it's the police, it's the parks, it's the swimming pool. It's most everything they see is in the general fund. Cemetery, streets.
Sidewalks.
That's all, everything they ever touch is in the general fund. They don't, you know, they don't touch the planning, TIF, code. You know, the people that lighting districts pay that fee. The other 4,000 funds have money already put away, and then they pay their water and sewer. So the general fund is what they're really talking about. And look how much money we have in the general fund, or in the cash flow. $243,000. Okay, let's go back to this one. How much money do we have left to spend this year? 336. Well, we have that big tax hit coming in. I know, the big that comes in May. Okay, that's when everybody takes their taxes. And we get the share comes in, the quarterly share comes in every quarter. So it's all budgeted, it's all planned out. But you can see, if we didn't get any more money, we would be short in the general fund by a lot. But we're getting about $100,000 in May, plus some other money. And fees and the court fees keep coming in, checks and donations and all that stuff right now. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of money in the general fund at all. And then, you know, nowadays 200,000 hardly goes to, you know, a truck goes down. You know, and I gotta explain one other part. So with those funds, and I'm gonna try an example we just learned the other day. I hadn't thought about like the mayor's salary. He's in charge of everything, right? So his salary can come out of as many funds that he oversees. And so, except for, you know, the TIF, can't do that. Building code, you can take a little bit of money out of building code, we do that for the clerk, because they do a lot of work in the building. As long as they're doing, you know, a portion of that work or the work, you can take money out of that fund. So like the mayor's airport, water, sewer, general fund. And I think can't remember, we calculated the building, but the planning fund this year. So, and like your salaries, I just never thought about this. Your stipends can do the same thing. It all comes out of the general fund right now. This year, we're gonna break it out just like we do the mayors. Because you guys literally overseeing you're approving the funds for the water and sewer. So when you come, and most of our expenses and bills are water and sewer here. We don't have a lot of expenses coming out, comparatively, money-wise. And so, looking this year, we'll probably divide up your guys's, give you the recognition, divide up your stipend based on what you're approving, which is kind of the way the mayor does.
This may be a dumb question,
Yeah.
but if one of us lived in the TED district, could you then pay?
So if you live in, say you lived in the TIF district, because you don't live in the airport. Right? So, and right now you decided to build a house, you'd still pay your taxes. But all your money would come to us. Well, not now, it's sunsetted. So,
No, are you saying, Talon, if you lived over there as a council person,
Could our salary?
could your salary come out of the tipped money?
No.
Because you're by ward, and so, and nobody will bitch about your salaries coming out of the general fund, because anything we pay from the general fund. But we're supposed to, be fiscally responsible by saying, okay, where do you actually work and where does it come from? Half the work by far is out of water and sewer, when you just look at the claims. Most of those are from water and sewer. And the airport, but they don't have them.
So
Anybody.
we spent, it looked like roughly 50-ish thousand out of the general fund
For,
this month.
if you go back here, so far, as of yesterday. As of yesterday.
What's that?
Out of the general fund, we already spent 50,000 on the general fund as of yesterday
For the month of March?
for the month of March.
There's been two pay
One,
periods?
Mhm.
Two pay periods already in that as well.
so, Once again, we're here to help and advise, and, we look at stuff every day, so it's not like, and you hear a lot of things like you said, the town people don't understand how this works. I've given this class to the council almost every year, and sometimes during council meetings, kind of go through it too. If you don't look at it every day, fund accounting is kind of hard. It's not like regular accounting. A regular accountant cannot do an audit of fund accounting, and they have to be specifically designated by the state and fit the requirement, because it's totally different than just black and white out of one. But each one of these, if you look at a fund, each one of these are like a business. Look at it like that, and so being a CEO of all the businesses, theoretically, you can take money out of all the funds if they have money in it. The fund would allow it. Like Gina, mine, whoever works in those areas, some of your funds some of your salary comes out of that, because that's where you spend your money at, time in, right? And by, you're supposed to do that, you don't have to do it. I say supposed to, a lot of it is, if you're coming out, jumping out, we took all your salary out of the water and sewer, we didn't have the market. Oh yeah. All of a sudden comes out of general fund, nobody cares. Because general fund is the catch-all fund, and that's why it's always broke. And they look at that, they look at our apportionment of what we spend so like we get a bill for gas for one of the trucks down in the sewer plant. A third comes out of streets, water and sewer. We divide those up by thirds every time. That's why you get those weird bills that look like, just multiple things, like, okay, let me look at that, because you have to go back and see. And it's, usually those bills are divided by thirds. General fund, water and sewer. But then if it's specific for the cemetery, then it goes right in the cemetery, is 100% out of the general fund. That's where that art comes in, because you got to know, someone buys a set of gloves, $15, $7, you're like, oh, and you divide it by 3. Because they're using it as a plant, they're using it out here, wherever they're working that day. So that's the art of it. There's no you know, okay, then tell me where do you use these gloves, like what percentage, that would kill us, you know. So we just use 1/3 road for each one of them, get stuff like that.
Wearing 2 pairs of gloves.
Yeah.
And change gloves.
Yeah, sorry, these are street gloves, you're wearing all gloves, you know. So, you see how hard it is, like, you know, like, I'll give you that, looking at the market, when you talk about the meters and stuff like that, that takes a lot of time to determine how much we're gonna spend on water or power. That's the salary for someone to do that is more than what they're making. Yeah. You know, so it's just, but I used to hear, why are we going to Missoula to buy all these office supplies? That was cheaper. They did it on the weekend on their own time. Simple, right? Now you hear, God, why do we spend all this money at the hardware store? It's so expensive driving to Missoula. No. An hour there, an hour back, gas, then we're paying the wage. Yes, you know. So there's stuff like that. You hear that all the time, you know. Let's save money by doing this. Well, are you really saving money once you dig into it? Because there's a cost savings to everything you do. And that's where, when you ask the questions in the budgets, you can ask those specific questions. What can we, you know, do to save money? Are we doing this or make it run or bulk supplies? I don't know. You know, just whatever you think about, send out to. Yeah, ask the question and they should come answer. We should. Okay, Gina, do you have anything to add?
No.
Thank you. For now?
No, just one of the things that they said, you know, at the budget meeting, they said you should really work on passing your wages before July 1st. So get the wages set and pass those before July 1st. They said that council members' salaries can come out of all of the different departments. And basically, that was just it. I mean, it wasn't really what I thought it was gonna be. The budget workshop, it wasn't what I thought it was gonna be. It was good. But it was basically just bring your stuff and if you need help entering it, I can help you. So, and there was some good information. It was nice to meet people and stuff. But, yeah. We have to have it in. See, I think last year we thought it was October 15th or something like that.
It changed.
And we had just gotten it in that day, October 1st. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that because they changed it last year.
And we didn't notify.
So they didn't, yeah, they didn't notify everybody. So this year it's due by October 1st. If we can get it set and put into place long before that, we'll be doing good this year. So,
Is there any limitation on when we can start working on that?
oh no, we've already started. We've actually already been working on it for the last couple of weeks. You know, so we're kind of tag teaming that. But we've already been working on it to be able to put it together for you guys. We've got to get with the department heads. Normally, I think the department heads in finance get with the mayor. They go over their wish list. This is what we want our budget to be. This is what we think. And then the mayor's like, you know, if the fire department's asking for a $50,000, you know, lift, well, that's a no. That we can't do that. We don't have any of the money to do that. So they cut out those little things before it's presented to you. And then you guys, once we give it to you and narrow it down to the department heads, like, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. We can keep in some of those wish lists, and then, you know, if we can do that, then you as the council people will look at it and say, yes, we can do that, or we need to take something from here, you know, to make it work, whatever, you know, you guys are the final say. So we try to give you a complete, well thought out budget so that it's understandable for all of us.
And on that wish list, we don't take stuff out and not put it on the wish list. So you'll see what they're asking for, you know. And then I love the department heads, but even just like at the last minute, and we're sitting in that meeting in front of everybody. Well, we need to, like, you know, we see each other every day. Why didn't you mention that? You know, or this great idea comes at the last minute. It's like, hasn't got through the staffing process. That happened last year. We added some stuff. That's where we added some of the capital asset project. That happened at the last minute that one particular person doesn't put in and tell us about. You know, that's the type where you just want to get up and, you know, let news and knock him in the head. But because that makes it sound like a bunch of buffoons. You know, it really does in front of the public. You know, it's like, how long have you been thinking about this? Oh, for about 6 months.
So true.
Exactly. So that's why I say, no questions, don't question or any input too. If, you know, it's not about a question. You guys are out there listening to the public. If the public's demanding, hey, you know, why don't we do this? Or why, we can then address those questions before they do it in public.
And sometimes it takes a lot of time to research that information. You know, you may bring something up that we never thought about, right? And so then we would have to do our research to find out, to be able to provide you with a good answer. So asking questions before you get to those meetings gives us all time to do the research, to be very thoughtful about how we're putting that together. And then when we present it, when the public would probably ask those same questions, we can give them that answer. And that makes it look like we're all doing a really good job working together to make sure that that comes together. And I think that's what's important. Because we do all work together. And like he says, we work for you, so.
And I'll meet with the mayor. What I do every year is I meet with the mayor and then finance and find out from the three of them when they want to start the budget workshops and then who kind of goes first, whether water and sewer are gonna do first, and we'll get all those laid out, and then I will schedule all of those, and get those pre-done, so that you guys know that if, try not to put them in the same week as a town council meeting, and we try to limit them. Last year, we limited them like to an hour, didn't
Yeah,
we?
we did pretty good.
We did pretty good last year, and so they won't, all the department heads won't be here at one time. They divide them out, and they tell me, this budget workshop needs to be police and fire, or this one's just admin, or, and so you guys will see those, and hopefully be able to nail them all down at one time, and then I just get them all scheduled and send them out, so you guys know that they're coming up. And it gives you guys time to ask questions, because then you'll know, oh, that police one's coming up next week. I did have questions about the police department or the fire department.
And you can talk to them too.
Yeah.
You know, and when we send us, if we send it out, here's what we're looking at. You get a couple of days, a week to look at that, 2 weeks or whatever. Any questions? Ask them too. I mean, they all work for the same goal in the end. And I know each department protects their own, so everything's important. And it is a lot of what they're talking about, like the lift, you know, that $50,000 lift. Never gonna happen in this budget. That's a sixth of our, you know, the seventh of our tax budget, you know, for out of the general fund, unless we get a grant, you know. But rural has one. You know, but you'll see that off to the side, you know. And it's not that we're not trying not to get it lift, because once again, it's, you know, they do great work, they go out and do great stuff, but you can see our money situation. You know, so there's a cost to everything we do, what we want to do. Okay.
Dig a pit, it's cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I always bitch about the fire department, but they do great work, and I'm always one of the champions too, because they've been on my house a few times, you know. And it's all the same guys that work here, and I live way out of town. Makes you wonder sometimes. I have a whole other thing I could go on. So other than that, do you guys have any questions or anything? Is it helpful? I mean,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the key, is as long as, you know, usually I pull out these sheets, we pull out these sheets, and, you know, everybody runs. You know, I can see it in their face. I mean, I do certain department heads just run away when you pull out a budget sheet, and they just like, you know, get them trained up, or anybody. And
We'll be honest, it's intimidating.
it's very intimidating, yeah. And you're relying on us to do the best we can to give you the best recommendation. And there's a ton of stuff that goes into this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like, and to be able to look at it, you know, 1 or 2 or 4 times once a week, for you guys, that's hard to do. And we look at it every day. You know, Gina's out there, Janelle's doing their part, you know. I come in and look at it every now and then and say stuff. But it's hard stuff. And then when we don't have the answer, we gotta call somebody. Because I have a lot of friends I call all the time, just because Some stuff is just, when you get into the art part of it, not the science, you know, they're like, yeah, let's check this out, you know. And they'll give you some answers, you know, which way you can go. And that's how we changed the water and sewer asset funds the year before. It's because, you know, we were kind of doing jacked up a little bit, and it's been going on for years. So I went and talked to somebody out in Columbia Falls, looked at their stuff. Oh, I totally get why it's called an auditor, and said, no, that's the way most people do it. I'm like, oh, geez, okay, let's change our stuff, you know. But we've seen it for a couple of years, you know, you don't think nothing of it, all of a sudden someone gives you an idea, it's like, why are you doing it that way? So,
Well, thank you guys for all the work you put into this. And I mean, I think with 3 new council members this year, we're gonna be asking a lot of questions and leaning on you guys really hard, so heads up on that.
That's good.
Could you email this PowerPoint?
Yes, yep.
That would be-
And I have another one I'll send out too. I got a few of them, and they're different things, you know, you look at it. I that kind of, you know, but I'll send 2 of them, I'll have 2 of them, so I'll send it.
Any other comments or questions for?
Overwhelming.
What was that?
It's overwhelming.
It's a lot, yeah.
It is. But not sure we're gonna try to steer your mom, we're trying to give you the best answer we can, you know. And you hear something about the pool coming up here later, because I did some analysis on the pool, and it's like,
I didn't hear it all that. Done some things that were done before, so, because
Yeah.
the grants, make sure they follow the line.
yeah, there's a lot of extra spreadsheets, tracking going on behind the scenes that, you know, Gina and Janelle and Dreamer are doing just to make sure we know where, you know, everything's at.
Well, I'd open it up for public comment, but I don't think we're gonna have any, so.
Pretty clear on that one.
Adjourned.
Oh, we have a motion to adjourn, do we have a second? All right, second, thank you guys, adjourn. Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, you guys.
Yeah.